Welcome. Almighty God, we pray for your blessing upon this council. Help and prosper its work for the advancement and benefit of its people, so that peace and happiness, unity and justice may be established amongst us all. Amen. Manningham Council acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners of the land and waterways now known as Manningham. Council pays respects to elders past, present and emerging, and values the ongoing contribution to enrich and appreciate the cultural heritage of Manningham. Council acknowledges and respects Australia's First Peoples as traditional owners of lands and waterways across country, and encourages reconciliation between all. Manningham Council also values the contribution made to Manningham over the years of people of diverse backgrounds and cultures. I welcome all members of the public who have joined us in person and online tonight to observe tonight's proceedings. I would like to advise that tonight's meeting is being audio and video recorded. All care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the gallery, it is assumed that your consent is given if your voice and/or image is broadcast by Council, and no additional recording of the meeting is permitted without Council's consent. Council meetings are conducted in accordance with governance rules. I will introduce each item of business listed on the agenda by calling it by number and by reading the title. I will then call for a mover and a seconder of a motion on the item before opening any debate. Only councillors can join the debate on an item. Councillors may adopt the officer's recommendation in the report or propose amendments and supplementary motions. I would like to draw your attention to item number 7 on tonight's agenda, public question time, which provides people with an opportunity to ask questions of the Council. Council has allocated 30 minutes for question time, and the process for public question time is set out by our governance rules. Questions must be received prior to the start of the meeting to be asked. Where we receive advance notice of a question in accordance with governance rules, we will provide a verbal response to the question at our meeting. Questions we receive just prior to the meeting may be taken on notice if we don't have the information available to provide a meaningful response. And if this happens, we will provide you with a written response to your question within 10 working days. Our governance rules provide that we deal with a maximum of 2 questions per person and up to 4 questions on any one issue. These rules will be enforced to ensure a broad range of topics and perspectives and can be heard during question time. When it is your turn to ask a question, I will ask you to come forward to the lectern in the gallery. After you ask your question, you will have 2 minutes to make a brief statement. If you have more than 2 questions, please submit these additional questions in writing to Council through the normal channels. To ensure the efficient conduct of our meeting and maximum participation during question time, all questions and answers shall be as brief as possible and no discussion will be entered into. Councillors in the gallery are reminded that question time is to be conducted in a respectful manner, having consideration to the diverse views of those present. Any disorderly conduct will be managed in accordance with our governance rules. I move to item 2, apologies and requests for leave of absence. I have received an apology for tonight's meeting from Councillor Jeff Goff. Councillors, I have also submitted a written request to the CEO for a leave of absence from 14th of August 2026 to the 20th of September 2026 and written disclosure of conflict of interest form to the CEO for this item. My interest in this item is the material of conflict interest and it relates to my upcoming leave. Councillors, I will now vacate the chair for the duration of this item and request Deputy Mayor Councillor Diamante to chair the meeting for this item.
Councillors, can I have a motion to grant a leave of absence for the Mayor? Councillor Lang.
I move that the Council grant a leave of absence to the Mayor, Councillor Jim Grievous, from his duties for the period from the 14th of August 2026 to the 20th of September 2026, inclusive.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor El-Tahar. I'll put that to a vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Can we ask the Mayor to come back in now?
Thank you, Councillor. Item number 3, prior notification of conflict of interest. Councillors, I have received prior notification of a conflict of interest from Councillor Peter Bain.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I've submitted a written disclosure of a conflict of interest to the CEO for item 10.3, 2026 Annual Community Grants Recommendations. My interest in this item is a general conflict of interest as I am an attendee of Vantage Point Church. I will leave the meeting prior to consideration of item 10.3.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Are there any other further notifications of conflict of interest? Thank you. Item number 4, confirmation of minutes. Do I have a mover?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to move that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 30th of June 2026 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor El-Tahar. Do I have a seconder?
I second the
Councillor
motion.
Lang. Councillor El-Tahar, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
I will put that motion. All in favour? That is unanimously carried. Item number 5, condolence motion. Former Councillor Julie Eisenbeis. Councillors, it is with deep sadness that I must inform you of the recent passing of Julie Eisenbeis. Julie dedicated much of her life to our community through her service in local government. As a Manningham councillor from 1997 to 2005, including as a mayor from 2001 to 2002, she represented the community and championed initiatives to benefit both current and future generations. Throughout her distinguished career, Julie worked to ensure communities had a voice in the decisions that affected them, and her passion for local government extended well beyond Manningham. She served on the board of the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV as we know it, and the Victorian Local Governance Grants Commission, and most recently chaired the Victorian Electoral Commission's Electoral Representative Advisory Panel, helping to shape council representation and electoral boundaries for the 2024 local government elections. Outside of local government, Julie built an impressive career spanning 30 years in the field of education and science, including serving as Executive Director of Global Business and Engagement at RMIT University. Her passion for helping people was also reflected in her service on several boards, including an aged care centre and the Box Hill Institute of TAFE. Julie's connection to Manningham remained strong throughout her life, and it is especially fitting that her memorial service was held at Manningham's Council, a place that held great significance for her. As Mayor, Julie proudly presided over opening of the function centre and hosted the inaugural Mayoral Ball, attended by more than 300 guests. I was honoured to gather there recently alongside her family and friends and former colleagues to celebrate her life and a remarkable contribution to the community. On behalf of the Manningham Council, we thank Julie for her truly outstanding service, leadership and dedication to local government. Her contribution to Manningham and communities across Victoria will be remembered with gratitude and respect. We extend our deepest sympathies to her family, friends and all those lives who she touched. Rest in peace. Can I have a mover? Councillor Conlon.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council places on record the sadness at the recent passing of former Councillor Julie Eisenbeis, and we will record its appreciation for the contribution by Julie Eisenbeis to the Manningham community and extend its sympathy and condolences to Julie Eisenbeis' family during this difficult time.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Diamante. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion?
Actually, yeah, I will say a few words. I only met Julie a few times, but one of the things that's not listed in her many achievements was she was actually on the board of Dunbar Christian College just before I joined that board. And it was clear from everything I've heard about Julie, her commitment to the community was outstanding and unsurpassed, I'd say. So it is sad for her family and for all those who knew her, but she has made a remarkable contribution to Manningham and to all those organisations she's been involved with. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Conlon. Councillor Diamante, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I never had the pleasure of meeting Julie, and I do extend my deepest condolences to her family. It's interesting when you walk up and down the hall and you see the photos of past councillors, and I always would notice Julie's photo on the wall, particularly when she was mayor. And I reflect, even though it was 2001, 2002, 24 years ago, it still would have been a difficult ride. And I think she only had 2 female mayors before her. And I think it's always impressive when you don't have a lot of people to be that sort of role model, that they get out there and serve the community and do so much, not just as mayor, but make that huge contribution to Manningham. So I want to thank her for her legacy and the support she probably never even knew she gave me through her photo on the wall. And as I said, I do want to extend my sympathies to her family.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other speakers? Councillors, I'd like to provide a message from Councillor Jeffcoff on behalf of the colleagues back then. When I heard of the news of Julie's passing, I was taken by surprise and filled with sadness. Last year, I met up with her at a function and discussed many things, but she did not indicate anything about her health. She was a wonderful friend and colleague and will be missed by all that knew her. My first memory of Julie was at the declaration of the polls at the council election back in March 1997. This was a significant time, as it was the return of councillors to Manningham from the commissioners who ran the newly established Amalgamated Council of Manningham, which was in the main form, the former city of Doncaster and Templestowe. Back then, elected were 8 councillors, 4 returning and having served in the Doncaster and Templestowe Council, and 4 newbies. Julie and I were one of those 2 newbies. The first council was an amazing group of people, as party politics and individual wants did not enter the scene. We all worked together to represent the community and did not need a code of conduct to be able to show respect and get along. The officers and councillors all knew each other and worked together to fix problems and issues. Julie was always on top of her game. She was so prepared for every single meeting. She would enter the room with a folder of the meeting documents with lots of coloured tabs and sticky notes. That reminds me of a few councillors here that do that. She always was able to concisely and accurately contribute to discussions. Her relationship with the community was excellent, and she involved herself supporting many community groups as well as individuals with issues. She was reliable, straightforward, considered and honest in her interactions. She was an excellent and competent chairperson who had respect of the council and community and was able to speak to audiences with only a glance at notes. She was a great host and would always move around the room to include people. And by the way, she had the best scrapbooks with photos and tickets marking all events she attended. And I did have the opportunity to have a look at those. Amazing, let me just say, from back then. She was the mayor that got the regional mayors from surrounding councils to work together. The display of all council badges and the written commitment was still on display in councillors' chambers rooms until recently. In these years, Manningham really was the go-to and exemplary council. During this time, Manningham achieved the global standard for quality management systems, the international standard for environment management systems, the Australian and New Zealand standard that outlines requirements for occupational health and safety management systems. Manningham was the first organisation in Australia to do so. We were also the first Victorian council to win the Australian Customer Service Award against private sector organisations and introduced a customer service charter and employed our own internal ombudsman, effectively implement the internationally renowned electronic delivery project. We were winners of the Australian Quality Council Award. Manningham at this time was recognised as a progressive Australian council, which led to numerous visits from councils not only locally but internationally. And in her 5th year on council, Julie became the mayor. the first of two newbies to get the position, as we all had the wisdom to really understand how council worked before leading in order to do the job successfully and gain the respect of the community. These first 8 years were very stable, as we were all re-elected to serve a second term and only one change in the third term. So 2 3-year terms and 1 2-year term, to allow all councils to then have the same election day every 4 years. As Manningham Mayor from 2001 to 2001 and 2002, Julie helped shape an important year as the council began shaping many of the projects and planning initiatives that have influenced the municipality over the past 2.5 decades. As Mayor, Julie opened the newly built Manningham Function Centre, which we are in today, and became council's premier civic and community events venue. Julie hosted the inaugural mayoral ball, attended by over 330 guests, which was the official opening of the function centre. That event was a real fundraiser, as community groups and sporting clubs received a portion from each ticket they sold. Julie played a significant role in bringing the project to fruition, which is why this held such a personal significance to her. Julie and the Rotary Club has organised First Cancer Council Manningham Relay for Life. And Julie ceremonially awarded the keys to the city to the 401 Squadron Australian Air Force cadets, with a memorable flyover, believe it or not, through the length of Doncaster Road in Manningham. Council adopted a new corporate plan that established a long-term vision, which centred on environmental sustainability, protecting neighbourhood character, improving community infrastructure, enhancing transport, delivering quality customer services. This marked one of Manningham's earliest strategic commitments to sustainability as a guiding principle. During this period, Council developed the foundations of what became the Doncaster Hill strategy. The strategy proposed transforming Doncaster Hill into a mixed-use activity centre, high-density residential precinct, walkable urban village and sustainable development showcase. And at the time, this was considered one of the most ambitious urban planning projects by a Victorian municipality, and later aligned with the Victorian Government's Melbourne 2030 strategy. And next was the leadership in sustainable urban planning. Manningham became recognised for promoting environmental sustainability, water conservation, energy efficiency, reduced car dependence, and improved public transport planning. These ideas were relatively progressive for local government in 2002 and helped position Manningham as a leader in sustainable planning. There was also investment in community facilities, including sporting reserves, parks and playgrounds, libraries, neighbourhood houses and community meeting spaces. This reflected Council's objective of supporting a growing and ageing population while maintaining a high quality of life. Strengthening community services, significant work continued in aged care and disability services, maternal and child care youth programs, volunteer support, multicultural community initiatives. These services expanded as Manningham's population became increasingly diverse and older, and planning, of course, for population growth. Council undertook extensive demographic and land use planning to prepare for future growth, particularly around Doncaster Hill activity centres, transport infrastructure, housing and diversity. And Julie's work extended to wider areas of government in Victoria, undertaking the roles as member of the Victorian Local Governance Grants Commission, chair of the Electoral Representation Advisory Panel, a member of the Commission of Inquiry into South Gippsland Council, and then chaired the panel of administrators of South Gippsland Council, and board member of the Municipal Association of Victoria. Julie always continued to support Manningham events after she moved away. Her commitment and work will surely be missed. Her outstanding achievements have gone towards making our communities better. Thank you for what you have done. You are remembered by the community and colleagues. Rest well with Richard. Regards, Councillor Goff. Councillors, I'll put the motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Item 5.2, School Crossing Supervisor Awards 2026. Councillors, I'm so delighted to congratulate Ellie Yim as the winner of the School Crossing Victoria Supervisor of the Year Award for Region 3. This award recognises supervisors who demonstrate outstanding professionalism, great safety knowledge, reliability and dedication to their school communities. Ellie has helped children and families safely cross the busy intersection of Manningham Road and Williamsons Road in Doncaster for the past 15 years. Her professionalism, reliability and warm connect with the local community have made her a familiar and trusted face for many families. We are proud to see Ellie's contribution recognised through this well-deserved award. Congratulations, Ellie, and thank you for your 15 years of dedicated service to our Manningham community. Item 6, petitions. Councillors, we have received 2 petitions for tabling tonight. The first petition tonight is regarding road safety assessment of the Weatherby Road and Gissing Court T Junction. Do I have a mover, please?
I move the petition with 38 signatories requesting council undertake an immediate road safety assessment of the Weatherby Road and Gissing Court T section in Doncaster East be tabled and referred to the relevant officer for response. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Do I have a seconder?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Main, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion? No. I'll put that motion. All in favour? That is carried. Item 6.2, second petition tonight is regarding the ethical procurement and responsible investment for Manningham Council. Do I have a mover, please?
I'd like to move the
Councillor
motion, Mayor.
Eltar.
I'd like to move that the online petition with 258 signatories and a hard copy petition with 40 signatories requesting council adopt an ethical procurement and responsible investment policy be tabled and referred to the relevant officers for response.
Thank you, Councillor Eltar. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Eltar, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd actually just like to note that this petition actually had close to 1,000 signatures, with the organisers sending that to council today. But due to some technical issues, only the approximately 400 could be formally recorded by council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Eltar. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Any councillors against the motion? I'll put that motion. All in favour? That is carried. Item number 7, public question time. We have received several questions tonight for tonight's council meeting. So anyone who has registered a question with council will have the opportunity to read out their question or choose to have their question read out by our CEO. I will call upon those who have registered their questions to come forward to the lectern in the gallery. Our first question tonight comes from Regina Gray. As Regina is not present in the gallery, or is Regina here? Just to make sure? No? As Regina is not present in the gallery this evening, I will invite the CEO, Mr. Andrew, to read out the question on her behalf.
Thank you, Mayor. And for the gallery and for some context, this question relates to item 10.1 in the agenda, Amendment C141 public acquisition overlay, and specifically as it relates to 47 Beverley Street, as well as the second question relating to an FOI, Freedom of Information application that was also put in relation to that. So the first question is, given that council already owns the rear block, what is the exact strategic infrastructure layout or master plan purpose driving this multi-block land consolidation? And why is this data being hidden from the affected families? And the second question is, why is council rushing to pass a permanent land use decree on the 28th of July, exactly 6 days before the statutory 30-day FOI disclosure deadline expires, thereby deliberately forcing a vote before the full planning and financial data can be legally exposed to the public record?
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I will pass it on to Andrew McMaster, who is the Director of City Planning and Livability.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, it is important to note further to the CEO's context in relation to these questions around item 10.1 in tonight's agenda, that the matter that is to be considered by council tonight is whether to refer a proposal to the Minister for Planning in order to commence a planning scheme amendment process. If council resolves to proceed at tonight's meeting, a public acquisition overlay is not automatically applied to the 7 properties. The proposed application of the PAO would first need to proceed through a statutory amendment process, which is a transparent and open process which involves multiple stages for impacted landowners and community, as well as council to be involved. Having met with all of the impacted property owners, and I see a number of you in the gallery tonight, I'd like to acknowledge firstly the gravity of the matter and the concern and stress that this has undoubtedly created for you. I'd also like to thank you all for your respectful engagement with Council to date, and emphasise that you'll continue to be kept informed of the next steps in this process. In response to Mrs Gray's question, I'd like to repeat the advice which was provided at our last meeting, and that is that the proposed PAO affecting 47 Beverley Street, Doncaster East, is being considered primarily, excuse me, to address open space needs of the local community, which has been identified in the Manningham Open Space Strategy from 2014. While an improved pedestrian connection through to Beverley Street from Doncaster Road and Devon Plaza would be facilitated by an open space in this location, that is considered an additional benefit to the primary driver for the acquisition, which is the creation of a new public open space of 2,000 square metres for the benefit of the local community. This will address a deficiency in open space provision that was identified in 2014 at the time of the development of that strategy, and will ensure that residents have access to open space within 400 metres walking distance of their residential properties. Achieving a reserve such as what is proposed with 2 street frontages also aligns with state and local policy on open space provision. On Mrs Gray's second question, as I've just noted, the matter being considered tonight is only to determine whether the matter should be referred for a proposed amendment to the Minister for Planning to commence the planning scheme amendment process. This is the first step in a process that typically takes between 12 and 24 months. The process for introducing a public acquisition overlay through a planning scheme amendment is designed to be transparent and publicly accountable, as I said. And the date for Council to consider the matter was scheduled before the FOI request that Mrs Gray refers to was received. In any event, should the Council resolve tonight to seek the Planning Minister's approval to commence that planning scheme amendment process, the FOI application that's been referred to is likely to be resolved before the process to implement a planning acquisition overlay has been completed. It is a statutory process that takes a number of months, and as I said, somewhere between 12 and 24 months to be completed. Thank you, Mrs Gray, for your question.
Thank you, Andrew. Our next question tonight is it Maria Costura? Is it Maria? Did I say your name correctly? Maria, if you're in the gallery, would you please come to the lectern at the front and ask your questions? You'll have 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide your context to your question, and then ask your questions.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Maria Costura, and I am the owner of 48A Franklin Road, one of the properties proposed to be affected by the Amendment C141 MAN, and I am a resident of the Manningham area for 50 years. I support the importance of an open space and recognise that the council has responsibility to plan for future generations. However, these decisions should be transparent, evidence-based, and should minimise the unnecessary impact on residents. The questions I have submitted seek to understand the evidence and the planning process that led to the selection of my property. The Open Space Strategy 2014 identifies principles for expanding open space, including providing access within a 400-metre walking distance. My own review indicates that the Boronia precinct is already well serviced by several existing reserves, and I have not seen the detailed assessment that explains why my property was selected over other possible better alternatives since 2014. I have identified alternative acquisition options that, in my view, could potentially reduce the impact on existing residents while achieving council objectives. I'm simply asking whether these options were properly assessed, and if so, why were they rejected? I respectfully ask council answer my questions so that the affected residents can have the confidence and that this decision has been made through a fair, transparent and well-supported planning process since 2014. In closing, I'd like Council to remember that this proposal affects 2 owner-occupied households, including a single female over 55 and a single female retiree. For each of our households, this process has the potential to create significant hardship and a high level of difficulty finding and purchasing an equivalent home in the area. Planning decisions is not about land, they are about people. The Australian Human Rights Commission has identified women over 55 and over as the fastest growing cohort of risk of homelessness in Australia.
Maria. That's
Every
your 2 minutes.
decision affecting someone's housing security should be
Maria,
approached
that's
with
your 2
great
minutes.
care.
Can you ask a question?
Of course I can, yes. So my question, please provide a detailed assessment relied upon in selecting 48 and 48A Franklin Road for the proposed public acquisition overlay. If no recent written assessment exists, please advise how the decision was made, in particular criteria used to select my property and recent gap analysis showing the 400-metre catchment. Based on the 400-metre catchment identified in the open space strategy, my mapping indicates that much of the Boronia precinct is already serviced by several existing reserves. Could Council please explain why additional land acquisition is required despite this apparent level of access? And my question 2, I'm okay to do question 2? Okay. What alternative sites or acquisition options has Council considered since the adoption of the Open Space 2014 to expand local space within the Boronia precinct while minimising impacts on existing residents? Please explain why alternative options, including acquisition of 45 and 47 Beverley Street with Franklin Road and the Devon Plaza car park site, were considered, accepted or rejected, and provide any comparative assessments undertaking. Why weren't impacted residents told about the 2020 and the 2023 endorsed list of properties for acquisition? Thank you. There are my questions.
Thank you, Maria, for your questions. I'll refer those again to Angela McMaster, Director of City Planning and Livability.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thank you, Maria, for your questions and for your time prior to tonight in our meeting as well. The Boronia precinct, which your property is located in, has been evolving over time, and there is an increasing provision of higher density housing typologies in that precinct. That increase in density is impacting the demand for public open space, which necessitates expansion of the open space network within that precinct. Our open space strategy from 2014 identified a section between Franklin Road, a section of Franklin Road, between Blackburn Road and Devon Drive as being outside of that 400-metre walking distance of a local park which exceeds the 2,000 square metres objective of the open space strategy. The 3 properties that are proposed to be the subject of the planning scheme amendment are required for the creation of an open space reserve in Doncaster East to the south of Devon Plaza, as you've identified, and Council is the owner of 50 Franklin Road, Doncaster East, which adjoins the 2 other properties that have been referred to, 3 other properties that have been referred to. If those properties are consolidated, these sites will create the park that the strategy seeks and meet the objectives of the strategy to create a park of over 2,000 square metres in size. And that is the recommended open space threshold that 2014 strategy strives to achieve. On question 2, the purpose of 50 Franklin Road, Doncaster East by Council has influenced the selection of adjoining properties required to create that new reserve. The list of properties that was endorsed by Council in 2023 was for acquisition only where the property was for sale by the property owner. No consultation with owners was required at that point in time, noting that was a process for Council to engage with willing owners where those properties came to the open market. As a number of those properties have now not come up for sale, officers have instead moved to this new process that we are discussing tonight, At that time, a couple of months ago, all landowners were advised about the council's proposal and invited to come in for the meeting that you and I sat through. That was in effect the first notification of the plans for council to compulsorily acquire if the planning scheme amendment is approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Maria, for your questions.
Thank you.
Our next questions tonight are from Simon Noisette. Is that how you pronounce the name? Simon, if you're in the gallery, would you please come to the lectern and ask your questions? Again, you have 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide you provide context to your questions, and then you can ask your questions. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Simon Noisette from Unit 8, 1 to 5 Darcy Street in Doncaster. I'm speaking on agenda item 10.1, requisition of authorisation, amendment C141 Man, public acquisition overlay for public open space. I'm the son of Barbara Noisette, an affected resident of 48A Franklin Road, East Doncaster. Mum is 83 years of age and has lived in the Manningham municipality since 1966. Many of you have actually met Mum in person or spoken over the phone with her during this process. The proposed acquisition would uproot her from a home that enables her to live independently, close to family, friends, doctors and specialists that she relies upon. Her home specifically supports her ageing, with no steps or trip hazards, and provides an environment that cannot realistically be replicated in the local area. During discussions with the council planning staff in May, one reason given for selecting these properties was to create that direct linear connection between Devon Plaza and Beverley Street. We therefore asked the council to review the project footprint and investigate design alternatives that would avoid acquiring her home. The 3 open space proposals have been grouped into one amendment despite having different proposed and impacts, different purposes and impacts. 2 proposals expand existing parks, while the Baronia precinct requires the acquisition of privately owned homes to create a brand new park. My first question is, what planning justification supports combining these proposals rather than considering the Baronia precinct separately, so the Ruffy and Birrung precinct proposals could independently be voted on by council? The strategic assessment for Amendment C141 Man states that the Manningham Open Space Strategy of 2014 seeks to ensure residents are within 400 metres directly walking distance of suitable open space exceeding 2,000 square metres. However, 47 Beverley Street is already within the walking distance of 220 metres from Morna Reserve, which is an open space that exceeds 5,000 square metres. The Director of City Planning and Livability also confirmed at the 30th of June 2026 Council meeting that the Baronia Precinct PAO is not primarily required to achieve a direct linear connection to Devon Plaza. Given those facts, what evidence demonstrates that acquiring Baronia Precinct properties provides a strategic public benefit sufficient to outweigh the significant social impacts on affecting residents? This is particularly relevant when the executive summary you have in front of you identifies alternate 15 to 20-year approach that would secure publicly accessible open space through acquiring the current underdeveloped or underutilised car park space on the corner of Franklin Road and Devon Drive. This could be incorporated in any future redevelopment of the Devon Plaza precinct, whilst achieving the very same strategic objectives that you're seeking without acquiring compliant residential properties. So my second and last question is, given that these considerations that I've just outlined, what planning basis remains for including in the Baronia precinct properties in Amendment C 141 Man? And will the council reconsider the inclusion or defer them for a separate matter?
Simon, thank you for your questions. I will again refer those to Andrew McMaster, Director of City Planning and Livability.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Simon, thank you for your questions. And again, thank you for our very respectful meeting where we discussed your mother's circumstances here at the council offices. Regarding your first question, and as discussed at our recent meeting, the proposed application of a PAO to the 7 properties is informed by the same strategic document. So all of the properties that are proposed to be acquired are proposed to be acquired on the basis of the Manningham Open Space Strategy 2014. The 3 precincts are being considered as part of a single amendment to ensure a coordinated and consistent approach to implementing the strategy across the municipality. Our professional opinion is that progressing the precincts concurrently supports orderly strategic planning by avoiding a series of separate or piecemeal amendments over time when the issues that are to be considered by a planning panel have pretty significant synergies under that strategy. Given that all of the proposals arise from the same endorsed strategy, a consolidated amendment process is considered the most efficient and transparent way to assess and implement the recommendations of the strategy. Should council resolve to seek authorisation, noting that that is the first step in the planning scheme amendment process, affected landowners and other interested parties will of course have the opportunity to make submissions on the strategic justification of individual properties through that process. On your second question, the open space strategy identifies properties along the section of Franklin Road between Blackburn Road and Devon Drive, as I mentioned to Maria, as being outside the 400 metres walkability buffer to a reserve that's greater than 2,000 square metres. The 400 metre walkability measure is not taken as the crow flies, but rather by measuring the pedestrian path required to access the relevant open space. For example, the property at 48 Franklin Road is located approximately 650 metres walking distance from Warner Reserve South. The 3 properties, together with 50 Franklin Road, which council owns, are required to create a reserve that addresses this walkability gap and to meet council's long-standing objective of that functional local reserve of 2,000 square metres or more. It also supports providing accessible open space for higher density properties which are being developed along the Doncaster Road growth corridor. This land configuration would also provide the additional but secondary benefit you've mentioned of a pedestrian link between Doncaster Road and Beverley Street via the council-owned reserve in the event that the public acquisition overlay was implemented and in the event that the council exercised its compulsory acquisition powers. The inclusion of the Beverley Street property further provides an additional street frontage and point of access to the reserve, and that's consistent with state government urban design advice that encourages new public open space to have active interfaces and passive surveillance opportunities for the safety of the public. While redevelopment of the privately owned Devon Plaza may occur in the future, there is no proposal before the council at this point in time for such a development. It's also considered unlikely, given the commercial zoning of the land, that provision of a reserve that would deliver the 2,000 square metres of public open space could form part of the redevelopment of a new centre there. It's also noted that council doesn't own any existing land within Devon Plaza that could supplement a public open space in that location. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Simon, for your questions. Our next questions tonight are from Andrew Noisette. Andrew, if you're in the gallery, would you please come to the lectern and ask your questions? You have 2 minutes, again, to make a brief statement and to provide context to your questions, and then please ask your questions.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Noisette. Speaking on behalf of my mother. Simon's provided context around her situation, but I would like to take the opportunity of thanking the councillors who either met with her personally or spoke with her over the phone in the past couple of weeks. It was greatly appreciated. My first question, and also pertains to agenda item 10.1, is that given the Manningham Open Space Strategy 2014 has now been in place for 12 years and is in the process of being refreshed, as outlined in the August edition of Manningham Matters, what's the necessity and the urgency to acquire the properties at 48 Franklin Road? Would it not be more prudent to delay the process until the refreshed open spaces strategy has been completed? As outlined, there's a lot of development going on. There's a lot of development that has happened since 2014. So definitely time for a refresh and a rethink, perhaps. Second question is that given the property at 50 Franklin Road was purchased by the council for the purpose of meeting the objective of the open space policy, why were the adjacent properties at 52 and 54 not acquired? That's 52 and 54 Franklin Road. These properties have been developed over the last 24 months and must have received approval by council. Acquiring these properties would not have had the human impact that the proposed PAO will have on the affected residents by displacing them from their homes. Why was this not considered by council officers when the demolition and building permits were submitted? There's a second part to that question around the underutilised space in the car park to the southwest of the current Devon Plaza, but that's been asked and answered. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your questions. I'll pass that over to Andrew McMaster again, the Director of City Planning and Livability.
Hello, Andrew. Good to see you again, and thank you for your time tonight and previously at the meeting with your mother and Simon. In relation to question one, the open space strategy from 2014 is the strategic basis, as I said a number of times, for the expansion of these new public open spaces. And the areas that have been selected on the basis that they are experiencing residential growth, and we have identified open space gaps within those precincts. The strategy's population at the time, the property's population growth forecasts were based on anticipated residential intensification, particularly along key main roads such as the Doncaster Road corridor and within key activity centres. And Devon Plaza is a key activity centre in Manningham. A key mechanism that facilitated this growth was the Design and Development Overlay DD08, which was introduced into the Manningham planning scheme and was gazetted in March 2007. As part of that amendment, the DD08 was applied to 48 Franklin Road and surrounding properties, providing for increased residential development capacity and contributing to that population growth assumptions which underpinned the open space strategy back in 2014. The proposed amendment to apply the PAO, or to commence a planning scheme amendment to apply a PAO to the 7 properties across the 3 open space precincts is actually the final stage in implementing the recommendations of that 2014 open space strategy. The new open space strategy, which, as you've identified, is currently being prepared or we're starting consultation on, will identify open space gaps and future needs, having regard to future projected population from today. So effectively, the acquisition of these properties is based upon forecasts at the time of the implementation of that strategy in 2014, and there will be additional gaps identified as part of a new public open space strategy, which the council will be developing and consulting on over the coming couple of years. On question two, there are a range of factors that council officers take into consideration in selecting properties for future acquisition, and that actually includes considering any active planning permits or recent development that's occurred at those properties. The permit for the development at 52 to 54 Franklin Road was issued in April 2022, which was actually prior to council purchasing the property at 50 Franklin Road. Subsequently, those adjoining properties were not identified for future acquisition on the basis of that development activity. The Devon Plaza car park, as I mentioned in relation to Simon's question, is privately owned. It plays an important role as an activity centre for businesses in the area, and we don't consider it likely that any future redevelopment of that site by the owner of that land could accommodate public open space to the extent of the 2,000 square metres, which is the subject of the strategic objective within the 2014 open space strategy. Thank you very much for your questions.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Andrew, for your questions. Our next questions tonight are from Sandra Webb. Is Sandra in the gallery? No. As Sandra is not in the gallery, I will invite our CEO, Mr. Andrew Day, to read the questions on her behalf. Andrew.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Sandra, for your questions. And for the context, for the gallery, this also relates to report 10.1 Amendment C141 MAN, the public acquisition overlay, and specifically to Virginia Court in Bulleen. And the questions are, what evidence does Council have of direct consultation with residents within the Bulleen Plaza Neighbourhood Activity Centre that the local community supports both increased density in this area and the expansion of Grant Olson Reserve, not only in terms of whether they would use a larger reserve in this location, but especially considering the potential impacts of introducing a larger reserve into the currently quiet residential court in terms of increased noise and activity, as well as safety concerns for children and elderly residents, given the larger reserve would be surrounded by busy roads, including arterial traffic from Manningham Road and the busy Plaza car park. And if this direct community support has not been established, why is Council progressing towards a public acquisition overlay process before the community has had a meaningful opportunity to have its say? And the second question is, Council has advised that the CEO has delegation to acquire the 7 properties if landowners initiate early acquisition discussions either prior to or during the Amendment C141 MAN process, subject to funding available from the Recreation and Reserve Fund. However, given the uncertainty a proposed PAO creates for affected residents, can Council please advise the current balance of this fund, how many properties Council could realistically acquire at current market rates in the short and longer term, and what financial modelling or commitments exists to ensure the remaining properties can be acquired so residents are not left with a long-term PAO blight if funding availability, property values, economic conditions or future government priorities change.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I will refer those questions to Andrew McMaster, Director of City Planning and Livability.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Sandra, for your questions. There are a number of reserves within the Birrarung Open Space Precinct, which the property in Virginia Court is located within. In assessing the location of those properties, Council's assessment considers not only the quantity of open space, but it's really important to consider its accessibility, functionality, and its ability to provide the greatest benefit for the community. Grant Olson Reserve was identified as the preferred location in this precinct because it has a direct connection with Bulleen Plaza. Given state government planning policy encourages increased housing and population growth within and around activity centres like Bulleen Plaza, expanding the public open space adjacent to those activity centres is considered to provide the greatest benefit to existing and future residents. The concerns regarding safety, noise and increased activity in an expanded reserve are absolutely something that need to be considered and will be considered should the property be acquired through any future planning and design process, which the community obviously is involved in as part of our community consultation processes. Consistent with state government planning policy, public spaces are, and I mentioned this already, but are expected to incorporate activated frontages and clear interfaces to surrounding streets to support accessibility and the passive surveillance that I've mentioned previously. On your second question, the purchase of properties for public open space, you're right, is funded through what we call the Resort and Recreation Reserve Fund. That fund is established at council to administer public open space contributions, which are paid to council by developers under the Subdivision Act 1988. Those contributions by law can only be used by council to either acquire land for use for public recreation or a public resort as parklands or similar, or improving land that we have already set aside, zoned or reserved for use in public recreation or as a public resort. Our annual report details that at the end of the 24-25 financial year, the balance of that reserve sat at just over $8 million. And we forecast that we will receive contributions to that fund in the order of $1 to $1.5 million per year. Developer contributions to the fund are forecast through council's long-term financial planning. And really, we aim to do that to support the future delivery of strategic open space outcomes and an expanded network for the benefit of the community. Council has forecast funding could support the acquisition of approximately one property per year on average. But given the balance of the RRR fund as it sits presently, the rate of acquisition can be increased if required. We are very interested and have spoken to councillors about a program that's designed with sufficient flexibility to respond to the timing and preferences of individual property owners for their acquisition of their individual properties. Thank you very much for your
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Regina, for your questions. Councillors, as per Council's governance rules, public question time can go for up to 30 minutes unless extended by Council. We have reached that 30-minute mark. Can I please have a motion to extend the public question time? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Diamanti.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move that in accordance with Rule 56.12 of the Governance Rules, public question time may be extended beyond 30 minutes.
Can I have a seconder, please?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. I'll put that motion. All in favour? Question time has been extended by 30 minutes. Okay, our next questions tonight are from Vincent Tester. Mr. Tester, if you're in the gallery, would you please come to the lectern and ask your questions? Mr. Tester, I will give you 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide you context to your questions, and then please ask your questions.
Councillors, it was unfortunate that Mr. Day was not able to provide an answer to Councillor Goff's question. Did Manningham have a web page that claimed it cleaned its pits once a year? Mr. Day took Councillor Goff's question on notice. I have come tonight to state that Manningham did have a web page prior to 2022 which stated the following. A. Street sweeping every 6 weeks to reduce debris that could block drainage system. B. Clean road drainage pits and drain pipes annually. C. Clean drains in flood-prone areas 3 times a year. I'm aware of this fact because in July 2018, the former CEO, Warwick Wynne, put me on a 12-month communication protocol that prevented me to speak about drain maintenance. Mr. Day, you extended Mr. Wynne's communication protocol for a further 3 months in your 15th of March 2019 letter to me. In my 5th of December 2022 email that I sent to all councillors and to your office contained 2 screenshots of council drain maintenance. The 2 screenshots showed prior and post differences in council drainage responsibilities. These differences raise concern with Mayor Diamante that enabled her to arrange a meeting with you on Tuesday the 20th of December 22 at 11 a.m. Question 1. Mr. Day, in my 5th December 22 email, it contained these screenshots, evidence that proved that Manningham did previously have a web page that stated A. Street sweeping every 6 weeks to reduce debris that could block drainage system. B. Clean road drain pits and drainage pipes annually. C. Clean drains in flood-prone areas up to 3 times a year. Not 1, not 2, but 3 times a year. If my 5th of December 2022 is not sufficient for you to confirm that Manningham did have clean road drains, pits and drain pipes annually and clean drains in flood-prone areas up to 3 times a year, I'm happy to provide you with further evidence to sustain my claim. Question 2. If Councillor Goff asked a question in a public meeting and you took the question on notice, will you, as a public interest disclosure, release your report to the public on this matter?
Thank you, Mr. Tester. I will refer to Lachlan Johnson, Director of City Services, for your answers.
Mr. Day is not
Thank you,
going
sir.
to respond to my question.
Mr. Tester, I'm referring the questions to Mr.
Thank
Johnson.
you very much. I'm just making
Director
a
of City
query.
Services. This is not a debate, Mr. Tester. It's your question times. You've asked your questions.
I have.
And we're here to hear your questions.
Thank
so
you.
now you're here to
Thank
hear
you.
the answers from Mr.
Yes,
Johnson.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tester.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Tester, for your questions. The information previously published years ago on Council's website outlining street sweeping and drainage maintenance activities does differ to the information published currently. There have been many updates to service approaches and levels over the years, including as to what you've spoken about. Council's recently undertaken a service review of street sweeping, as well as investing additional funding for street sweeping in the last budget. Officers will be presenting a public report to Council on street sweeping in the next couple of months on this service. This approach is consistent with contemporary asset management practice and ensures that available resources are directed to the areas of greatest need rather than being spread uniformly across the entire network, irrespective of risk or condition. With regards to your second question, Council's investment in digital asset management, improved data and network analysis has provided much greater visibility into drainage and street sweeping operations, enabling maintenance to be targeted where it delivers the greatest benefit while improving transparency and accountability. Updated website information reflects this more accurate, evidence-based approach, with maintenance schedules now based on specific asset needs rather than broad citywide averages.
I'm sorry, I wasn't
Thank you,
able-
Mr. Johnson, for your answers. Mr. Tester, thank you. This is not a debate.
I was
This
not
is a
able-
question time.
I know, I
Yep.
understand that. I'm not
Yep.
trying to be argumentative. All I want to say is this: I was not able to hear his response properly due to the acoustic environment, which are terrible, if I may say so. My simple question was,
Yep, Mr.
did
Tester,
we
again,
have...
you've asked your questions. You've asked your questions.
Well,
We will
unfortunately,
get- we
you
will
did
get a
not
transcript.
answer my question. I'll
Mr.
be back
Tester,
next month.
Mr.
Thank
Tester,
you very
we will
much.
get a transcript for you, and we'll get that transcript sent to you in order for your questions. Thank you. Councillors, our next question is from Helen Stramenitis. Helen, if you are in the gallery, could you please come up to the lectern? Again, we'll give you 2 minutes for your for the background of your questions, and again, you'll have 2 minutes for that, and then please provide your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. One moment. So, community representatives come before council today with a petition asking Manningham to strengthen its commitment to ethical procurement and responsible investment. At its heart, the petition asks a simple question: should the way council spends public money reflect the values of our community? Some may argue that Manningham's only one local council and that its purchasing power is relatively small, and that contracts that are awarded are unlikely to influence the conduct of multinational companies or events occurring around the world. However, ethical procurement is not about the size of a single contract. It's about the principles that guide how public money is spent. Every procurement decision reflects the values of this council and the trust placed in it by ratepayers. Just as council considers financial, safety and environmental risks when selecting suppliers, it should also consider whether those suppliers have been credibly implicated in serious human rights abuses, breaches of international law, or other unethical business practices. No single council can solve the global problems, but every council can decide whether its own procurement decisions align with its stated commitment to ethical, sustainable, and socially responsible governance. Given the pervasive nature of global supply chains, it's very hard to be perfect operators, but in areas where abuses are clear and there are easy substitutes, council should at least implement the low-hanging fruit where it can. We are not seeking perfection, but we are expecting steps and actions in the right direction.
Thank you, Helen, for your... That's your 2 minutes. Could you ask your questions, please?
My question is, if council awards contracts for security services, technology, or any other significant procurement, what independent criteria does it use to determine whether a supplier has been credibly implicated in serious human rights abuses or breaches of international law? And if no such assessment is currently undertaken, will council commit to introducing one?
Thank you, Helen, for your question. I'll refer that to Karen Patterson, who is the Director of Experience and Capability.
Thank you, Helen, for your question tonight. Council does have a procurement policy in place, and that policy was recently updated. The new policy was endorsed by our council on the 30th of June and will come into effect in October. It does continue our existing approach to social and ethical procurement and further strengthens that approach. We undertake what we call a value for money approach in terms of our procurement activity. This includes consideration for balancing costs, quality, risk, as well as economic, environmental and social and ethical considerations. Under our policy, those considerations include factors like human rights, fair labours and a range of other legal and regulatory compliance matters such as safety, etc. These factors need to be considered in our planning, our specifications, our valuation and also in our contract management practices. We do already have practices in place here at Manningham to undertake due diligence checks on suppliers before we enter into contractual arrangements, and we'll continue those practices. So thank you for your question.
Okay. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen, for your question. Our next question is from Rita Manassis. Rita, if you're in the gallery, could you please come up? And come up to the lectern. You'll have, again, 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide you context to your questions, and then please ask your questions.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. In 2025, Menzies for Humanity met with the Mayor to discuss Council's procurement policy and was advised it would be reviewed in 2026. Following Council's endorsement of the revised policy at its last meeting, we have tabled a petition in response to questions from ratepayers about the suppliers Council engages. Over the past year, Menzies for Humanity spoke with and had the support of more than 1,000 community members. The petition reflects growing concern about companies linked to human rights abuses, intrusive surveillance practices, or environmental harm. Residents raised several examples. Coles' partnership with Palantir Technologies to introduce data integration and increased in-store CCTV surveillance. As Palantir develops spying, military and policing systems, many residents are concerned that everyday shopping is becoming increasingly intrusive and Orwellian. Another example, Rio Tinto's destruction of 46,000-year-old Indigenous heritage sites in 2020 for mining expansion prioritising commercial interest over cultural heritage. And yet another example, Hewlett-Packard, whose violations of Palestinian human rights have been well documented as they provide the technology that Israel uses to maintain its system of occupation, expansion of illegal settlements, and settler colonialism over the Palestinian people. The examples are endless, so we congratulate Council on adopting a revised procurement policy that commits to champion sustainable and ethical procurement, engaging suppliers who demonstrate fair, ethical and socially responsible practices and who meet legislative and regulatory obligations such as workplace safety, human rights and modern slavery. We now ask Council how this commitment will be put into practice when assessing future suppliers. My questions are, number one, specifically, what criteria will be used to evaluate suppliers against these ethical standards and how frequently will supplier audits be conducted? And number two, will Council consider publishing its evaluation criteria and a register of suppliers to provide ratepayers with confidence that ethical procurement is transparent, ongoing and rigorous?
Thank you, Rita, for your questions. I'll refer those to Karen Patterson, the Director of Experience and Capability.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, and thank you, Rita, for your questions tonight. As per my answer to the previous question, we do obviously have that policy that you mentioned in place, which does require ethical and social considerations and a number of different key considerations under that as well. As I answered previously, that policy and those requirements need to be considered in the planning stages, in the specification, the evaluation, as well as our contract management practices. And we do have some existing practices in place around due diligence checks of suppliers. In answer to your second question regarding the publishing of criteria and information, we do have quite a bit of information that's already provided when we go out to procurement, so that information is provided and available to suppliers, and it includes information around our terms and conditions and our evaluation process. In addition, we also have a range of information available already on our website in our commitment to public transparency, and that includes lists of our contracts over $1 million and the suppliers on those contracts. We are continuously looking for improvements and ways we can do different things differently, and we'll take on board your considerations, your items that you put forward tonight in consideration. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Rita, for your questions. Our next question comes from Cynthia Pilley. Cynthia, if you're in the gallery, could you please come up to the lectern? Again, you have 2 minutes to make a brief statement to provide context to your questions, and then please ask your questions.
Thanks, Mayor Jim Grievous, for allowing my question, and thanks, councillors, as well. In Sam Neill's memoir, the late Sam Neill's memoir, he said, "Back in New Zealand, on my land, I've been assiduously planting trees for decades now. Last spring on the farm, we planted 2,500 native trees and shrubs. Planting trees is about as important a thing as you can do in these times. I'd like to think we are getting as close to carbon neutral as we can be on the farm, although I've never measured that. I sometimes despair for the future of my grandchildren, and indeed the planet. But despair does no good. You have to do something. Planting a tree is a positive step every time." Reading these words has urged me to again propose something that can set the scene to save more tree canopy in Manningham and the planting of new ones on our private properties. Without tree canopy, as we all know, we are creating urban heat islands. The government's target of 30% tree canopy cover in Plan for Victoria is widely accepted as necessary for human health. Reforms have established minimum percentage canopy on private land, but also allow fence-to-fence building on a block. It is imperative the Council does more to increase canopy cover and to bring us with you. Easy to remove trees, kill trees, but takes time to grow tree canopy. My first question is, will council promote community interest and knowledge to save our trees and consider using tools like tree plotter to identify areas where tree canopy on private property has reduced, and agenda a report on canopy tree numbers at all council meetings and regularly report in Manningham Matters? I understand that Tree Plotter is a database of trees that is used to record tree planting and removals. In Mereback, the council, it's their approach to, they have an approach to public access to its tree database. And my second question is, will council, in recognition of the necessity and urgency of these matters, develop an information sheet to accompany all planning applications and that prioritises what sustains trees, less concrete, more soil, and planning controls that recognise gardens and green space as essential infrastructure, not just optional extras? Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for your questions. Before I refer this question, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who turned up on Sunday and assisted in planting over 12,000 plants on the weekend for National Tree Day. So there is a member of the public in here, I'm not going to put that person out, planted over 200 plants on that Sunday. So, we do take it seriously, and it shows the actions of our community on the weekend. Andrew, I will refer the question to you.
Thank you, Mayor. And like many around the table, I have sore hamstrings from being there as well. So it was a great event. And thank you once again, Cynthia, for coming along and raising the issue of tree canopy right across the state, but particularly here in Manningham. And I can absolutely guarantee to you that it is a matter that council considers regularly. It's been quite a challenge with the North East Link and the like, with removal of trees, and that's very much been on council's agenda, and it is certainly something that, from an officer perspective, we are well aware of is a challenge within our municipality, as you rightly point out, both on public land but also private land as well. We certainly appreciate the ideas that you constantly provide us in terms of how we can do better in this space, and we do have strategies coming forward that we'll consider a number of these matters, and particularly tree canopy as well, that will be considered by council into the future. We'll take these ideas on notice as well, and I'm sure the officers will and consider those and come back to you, but we always appreciate your passion and your advocacy in this space, and we'll genuinely consider the ideas that you've given us here again tonight. So thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for your questions. And thank you to all the public for your questions tonight. We really appreciate it. Item number 8, admission of urgent business. Councillors, there are 2 proposed urgent business items tonight. Do I have a mover for admitting the proposed urgent business items?
Yes, Mayor.
Councillor Al-Taha.
I move that council admits for consideration the following 2 urgent business reports at item 14 of this meeting. First, item 14.1, appointment of independent advisor to the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee. Item 14.2 being the second, the Audit and Risk Committee, appointment of new independent member.
Do I have a second, though?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Al-Taha, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do I have anyone against the motion? I will now put that motion. All in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item number 9, planning permit applications. There are no planning permit applications that require a decision of council this month. Item number 10, city planning and livability. Item 10.1, request for authorisation amendment C141 MAN, public acquisition overlay for the public open space.
Mayor, I'd like to move the following motion, that Council refer this matter to the 27 October 2026 Council meeting to enable further review of the properties identified for the potential application of a public acquisition overlay under Planning Scheme Amendment C141 MAN.
Do I have a seconder for that motion?
I second the motion, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Do I have a councillor against that motion? I'll now put that motion. All in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 10.1 will be moved to the 27th of October 2026 Council meeting. Item 10.2, Disability Access and Inclusion Framework 2026-2030. Do I have a mover, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please?
I second the motion, Mr
Thank you,
Mayor.
Councillor Lang. Councillor Bain, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would. Fellow councillors, it's my privilege as the Chair of the Disability Advisory Committee to move the recommendation to adopt Manningham's Disability Access and Inclusion Framework for 26 to 30. Tonight we are affirming a commitment that every person in our community deserves the opportunity to participate, contribute and belong. Disability inclusion is a whole of community issue. It touches residents of all ages, backgrounds and life experiences. The framework reminds us that 15.8% of Manningham residents identify as living with a disability, while more than 7,800 people require assistance with core activities of daily living. These are our neighbours, our friends, our family members, our work colleagues and our community leaders. They should never face barriers that prevent them from fully participating in community life. I want to acknowledge the significant work that has gone into developing this framework. It has been shaped through extensive engagement with people with lived experience of disability, carers, service providers, community groups, advisory committees and council officers. The voices of people who experience barriers every day have helped guide its direction, and is exactly how inclusion should be approached. One of the strengths of this framework is that it moves beyond compliance and focuses on genuine inclusion. It recognises that disability inclusion is not only about ramps and parking spaces and accessible buildings. Important as those things are, it is about attitudes, communication, representation, leadership, employment opportunities, participation in community life and making sure people feel welcomed, valued and heard. The framework is built around four important themes. First, celebrating voice and representation. People with disability must have a seat at the table and be involved in decisions that affect their lives. Second, participation in everyday life. Everyone should be able to access council services, programs, volunteering opportunities and community activities without unnecessary barriers. Third, inclusive places and spaces. Our public facilities and infrastructure should be designed with accessibility and universal design principles in mind from the start, not as an afterthought. And fourth, inclusive leadership and governance. Council must continue building its own capability and culture so inclusion is embedded across everything we do. What I particularly like about this framework is that it recognises disability through a strength-based lens that focuses on removing barriers rather than defining people by limitations. It acknowledges that disability is part of the diversity that enriches our community. Importantly, this framework aligns with our council plan and with state, national and international commitments to inclusion and human rights. It provides a clear roadmap for action over the next 4 years and establishes mechanisms for reporting, monitoring and accountability so that we can measure progress and continue learning from our community. I want to especially acknowledge the ongoing contribution of the Manningham Disability Advisory Committee, who I've had the privilege of working with over the last 18 months. The committee has worked constructively and passionately to ensure that lived experience of disability remains central to Council's thinking, and I thank every member for their dedication and advocacy. The true test of a civilised community is not how easy it is for the majority to participate, it is how effectively we remove barriers for those who face the greatest challenges. When we improve accessibility and inclusion, everybody benefits. Those with disabilities benefit, older residents benefit, people recovering from injury benefit. Ultimately, a more accessible city is a better city for everyone. The framework provides us with a strong foundation to continue that work. I'm proud to support it, proud of the collaborative process that created it. and proud that Manningham is taking another important step towards becoming a community where everyone can participate and thrive. I commend the Disability Access and Inclusion Framework 26 to 30 to Council and ask my fellow councillors to support its adoption. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, there's not much more to say. Councillor Bain did a very good job of that. I've ticked all of my boxes nearly. The only thing that I will add is, as proud as we are of this framework, it also compares with our local and other municipalities. And so because of the strength of this new framework and its improved focus on improved accessibility and participation and voice, and moving away from those just compliance matters, but to actually remove barriers for inclusion, it then really does compare as one of those leading frameworks with our other municipalities. So, councillors, we should be proud to be part of a group of municipalities that is making Victoria inclusive and accessible. And if I just talk quickly, that it also aligns with our Australian Local Government Association, their framework on disability and inclusion. So we are aligning with our Victorian and Australian policies and also our municipalities, which gives each individual municipality adds together to make all of us ensure that inclusivity and access and reducing barriers is for all Victorians and Australians. So we should be very proud of this policy, and thank you to the officers and the community that developed it.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Do I have a speaker for the motion? Councillor Diamante.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to talk briefly. I remember when I had the pleasure of being the mayor in 2022, 2023, I was at a Rotary award for people with varying disabilities. And I remember then the speaker said, when you look at us, you see my disability, but all I see are my abilities. And I love that, and it stuck with me. And when I look at this disability action plan, for me, it's about, regardless of ability, we want people to be involved in Manningham. We want people to be able to participate in civic life. We want people to participate in recreation, people to be able to have a say, people not to be lonely. And I've shared with you a friend of mine who's losing her hearing at only the ripe old age of 60, and just the isolation and loneliness. So I do fundamentally believe it's the role of council and all governments to be able to provide these services. So I'm also really proud that we've got this plan, and I'm looking forward to reports back from officers, not just progress about the plans, but how we can even dig deeper and look at different opportunities for people with different abilities to participate in not just Manningham civic life, but in all the different activities within Manningham. So absolutely, I recommend this strategy to the other councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Do I have any other speakers for the motion? I will put that motion. All in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 10.3, 2026 Annual Community Grants Recommendations.
Councillors, I wish to disclose that I have a general conflict of interest in this item, as I am an attendee of Vantage Point Church. I'll be leaving the chamber for the duration of this item.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. So for the 2026 Annual Community Grants Recommendations, do I have a mover? Councillor Chen.
I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Chen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And following Council's endorsement of the Community Grants Policy 2025 to 2029 at last year's 22nd July Council meeting, the 2026 annual community funding round opened on 23rd February and closed on the 1st of April this year, receiving 59 applications across the four grant streams. The four grant streams are healthy aging, festivals and events, arts, and community development. After eligibility assessment, subject matter review, and panel assessment, only 17 applications totaling $252,334 are recommended for funding from an available budget of $310,000. Funding was not recommended for the remaining 31 applications as they did not fully align with the required assessment criteria. Although only 17 applications are recommended for funding, resulting in a relatively low success rate. The assessment panel did recommend reinvesting the remaining $57,666 program underspent into targeted community capacity building and continuous program improvements. These initiatives will include in-language grant writing workshops, training on the appropriate use of AI tools, as I was told that many applications did use AI tools to assist their applications, but were unfortunately in an appropriate way, so making the applications really difficult to read. And also education on event management compliance. Additionally, fundings will assist senior clubs in building well-structured programs and refine the Council's own application processes to enhance efficiency. These actions will improve community application standards, boosting success rates for both Council and external government grants applications. While I want pretty much to see as many successful applications as possible, I'm very mindful that we are accountable for public money. Strict standards, therefore, must be met. I support the recommendations, therefore, and I asked my fellow councillors to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Collins, would you like to speak to the motion?
I did have a few things to say, but I think they've all been said. But no, I'd just like to also just acknowledge the external panel for their work in terms of carrying out their due diligence on the applications, and also considering how the process can be improved, as Councillor Chen mentioned, in terms of the future. So I do think that is a really important thing. A lot of these organisations that apply for this funding are run by volunteers, and it's really hard for them to get their head around often what sort of hurdles they have to jump over to make their application successful. So I appreciate the work of the panel, and I appreciate that we'll give constructive feedback to the people, to the applicants, the 31 applicants that didn't make it in terms of being successful. So I do appreciate the process and the thoroughness that the panels put these applications through, and I endorse the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Collins. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Do I have a speaker for the motion? Councillor Ling.
Thank you. I just wanted to also add, I mean, we've spoken about all the details of the community grants process, but I wanted to really hone in on the human impact. You know, our community grants is a practical way that council helps our volunteers, local organisation and non-for-profit organisations support our community. In fact, it's a practical way that we meet our health and wellbeing targets and objectives as well. So it is one of those ways that we can help celebrate community life and bring people together. It's more than a financial contribution to these organisations. And if we look at how we're using the underspend, it's about supporting our community organisations to thrive so they can deliver the benefit for all of our community, which is that connectedness, which is community life, which is harnessing culture, which is celebrating together. And so it's more than just financial, it is partnership in a way that is practical. So I also would encourage my fellow councillors to support this.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have any other speakers to the motion? I will now put that motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Can we have Councillor Bain return to the... Item 10.4, notification of native title application. Do I have a mover, please?
That the recommendation be adopted, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Diamante. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, this report is asking, it's not asking council to take any positions on our native title claim, and I just want to make that clear, but rather it's noting that our CEO's decision and delegated authority to join the federal court proceeding as it responds as a party to this claim. You know, council has interest in ground and council-owned land where we are either land managers or we are landowners. And to have a seat at the table ensures that we're getting the up-to-date information on this matter and advocating for the interests of our community and for our cultural heritage. Joining this is a constructive way to have engagement on a very important matter. You know, as councillors, we have a responsibility to be stewards of the environment and our cultural heritage. So having a seat at the table to understand the importance of our local waterways, bushlands and open spaces is important for Manningham. And I note that the state government is playing the lead role in these proceedings, but it is important that we at Manningham have a seat at the table so that we can have amicable and transparent and open engagement on these matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Diamante, would you like to speak to the motion? Is there a councillor against the motion? Have I got a speaker to the motion? I will now put that motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Item number 11, City Services. There are no City Services reports this month. Item number 12, informal meeting of councillors. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Taha.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Conlon. Councillor Taha, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that it was another busy month of meetings. In particular, there were a lot of meetings this month, including the Rap Yarning Circle, the Multicultural Advisory Committee, the Historical Societies Working Group, the Healthy Ageing Committee, the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, as well as various strategic briefing sessions for councillors. And the committees that I was involved in had some really interesting discussion regarding frameworks that they were asked to review, and also some interesting insights into some of the policies that our officers are looking at. So I always thank their community members for giving up their time for those. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taha. Councillor Conlon, would you like to speak to the motion? No. Are there any other councillors who would like to speak to the motion? I'll put that motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Item 12.2, documents for sealing. Do I have a mover, please?
That the recommendation be adopted, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have a seconder, please?
I second the motion.
Councillor Main. Thank you. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mr
And
Mayor.
Councillor Main, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I will put that motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Item 13, Chief Executive Officer. 13.1, appointment of acting chief executive officer. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the recommendation be adopted.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Taha. Councillor Chan, would you like to move to the motion? Speak to the motion, sorry.
Yeah, I'll speak to the motion. Our CEO, Mr. Andrew Day, will take leave from the 9th of September 2026 to 11th October 2026. Under Sections 11 of the Local Government Act 2020, Council may delegate to the CEO the power to appoint an acting CEO for up to 28 days. Because Mr. Day's absence exceeds 28 continuous days, a formal council resolution is required. Therefore, I move that council appoint Karen Patterson, Director, Experience and Capability, as acting Chief Executive Officer for the period from 9th September 2026 to 11th October 2026 inclusive. And I seek my fellow councillors' support to this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Councillor Taha, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Only that I support the motion, obviously, and I wish our CEO a very well-deserved break. And I have all confidence in Karen to fill his shoes while he is away.
Thank you, Councillor Taha. Do I have a councillor against the motion? Do I have any other councillors to speak to the motion? I will now put that motion. All in favour? That is carried unanimously. Item 14, urgent business. Appointment of independent advisor to the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee.
Councillors, I wish to declare that I have a material conflict of interest in this item as the matter relates directly to my employment and remuneration. I will be leaving the chamber for the duration of this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Thank you, councillors. I will be moving the motion that Council A, appoint Richard Baum of the Trustee for Pilgrims Restoration Trust, trading as Ashton's Forsyth Proprietary Limited, as independent advisor to the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee for a period of 12 months, with the option to extend for 2 one-year terms. And B, award the contract on the schedule of rates specified in confidential attachment for the estimates contract spent of $20,000, including GST. And should the total contract term, including extension options, be taken, the possible total contract sum is estimated to be $60,000, including GST. And C, delegate to the Director experience and capabilities the power to enter the contract. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Diamante. Councillor Diamante, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you.
I reserve my right.
He was just being efficient. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, councillors, I was involved in the evaluation of this procurement, and I was very satisfied in going through this evaluation that the provider that's been selected absolutely has the capability to provide the guidance both in the setting of CEO KPIs and also the review of CEO performance. We know this is a really important task for councillors, and it's good to have someone that not just has the experience, but it's also good to get an objective perspective on performance assessment, but also looking broadly at what type of KPIs we can use to ensure that we can then deliver our accountabilities as councillors. The service provider nominated has got an excellent working relationship with Manningham, excellent working relationship with Manningham councillors, and I'm confident that we can also have frank discussions with the service provider about this really important topic. So I'm very pleased to recommend their appointment.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. I also read the words that you've said. It's really important that this committee does look stringently at the KPIs, and we will, and we look forward to what the outcome is of our deliberations. So I will put that, I will ask if there is a councillor against this motion. Therefore, I will put the motion. All in favour? And that is carried unanimously. And we just wait for our CEO to return. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Item 14.2, Audit and Risk Committee, appointment of new independent member. Do I have a mover, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I recommend that Council A appoint Mrs Carolyn McLean as the independent member of the Audit and Risk Committee for a 3-year term commencing on the 29th of July 2026 and concluding on the 31st of July 2029. And B, acknowledge and thank Mr Andrew Dix for his outstanding contribution and service as an independent member and chairperson of the Audit and Risk Committee since 2017.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Diamante. Councillor Lang, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just thought I would give a quick summary. You know, the Audit and Risk Committee is an independent advisory committee of council, and it is established under sections 53 to 54 of the Local Government Act. It also helps us with the legislative and independent oversight of council's functions. The committee comprises of 3 independent members and 2 councillor members. The independent members are appointed by council for a 3-year term, and that's what we are doing this evening. The vacancy did arise, and I do touch on this because it is important. It's not that you know, we have had a vacancy for any other reason but that the vacancy has risen through the fact that it's the completion of a 3 consecutive term by the outgoing independent advisor and chairperson, Mr Andrew Dix. And knowing Mr Dix and being a part of this committee for some time, we really do thank him for his dedication over a long period of time, a consecutive period of time, and having a substantial impact on the professionalism, the credibility and the audit and risk supervision of council operations under this committee. I also wanted to touch that we've had the extensive recruitment process with 69 applications. Wow. And that's wonderful. You know, it is very hard to find people for positions, especially when you think about local government. For me, who's in education, you can look to having people fill a position and they've only ever been in education. And sometimes you can be in a little bubble in the profession that you're in. And you want that independent, you want people outside to come and view what's happening inside, because sometimes you don't see it. And so I'm very pleased that, you know, today we've looking at appointing Ms Carolyn McLean with her 36 years experience in both Commonwealth and local government management roles across a diverse range of council and federal government services, including ranging from community portfolios, finance and corporate planning, as well as people and culture and development. So we should be reassured that we've had a competitive process, that we are appointing a member who's got experience in both local government and outside to really give us the eyes that the Audit and Risk Independent Committee members need. And I would encourage my fellow councillors to also endorse our candidate, Mrs Carolyn McLean, and congratulate her for this appointment.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Councillor Diamante, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, thank you. First, I just want to emphasise the point of 69 applications, and I wonder how many other councils are lucky to have so many applications. I do think it speaks to the strength of governance at Manningham and the exposure and experience. And if that makes me sound like I'm bragging, I probably am, because I am very proud of Manningham Council from a governance. What I just wanted to add to what Councillor Lang said is that a really important part of this was looking at the skills and capabilities and experience required to complement the existing members, particularly the independent members. And I believe we've got real strengths with our members in finances and audit, technology, cybersecurity. So I'm really pleased that Ms McLean brings extensive knowledge and experience in risk and in governance and compliance, as well as oversight of organisational design and organisational performance. So I think she will be a great complement to the skills that we have on this board, and she's got some big shoes to fill given Mr Andrew Dix's experience and competencies, but I'm really looking forward to welcoming her and working with her as one of the audit and risk councillors, and I recommend this appointment to the other councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Do I have a speaker against the motion? Do I have a speaker to the motion? I will now put that motion. All in favour? And that is unanimously carried. Item number 15, councillor reports and question time. Councillors, can I just say I had a great evening on Wednesday the 15th of July with the Rotary Manningham City speech contest for the Doncaster and Bulleen schools. And what an amazing night of speeches from the grade sixes. There were a number of VIPs there, and let me just say some of these students put us to shame in regards to speaking off notes, where some of us do and some of us don't, but they had a tremendous the judges had a tremendous difficulty in picking the winner on that night. They actually deliberated for quite a bit of time. And I think you also agree that we had a great time there, and those students were amazing. I also want to let you know that the Warrandyte Historical Society celebrated their 50-year anniversary. So what a fantastic night of getting all the historical people together, talking about what they had done as part of the Warrandyte Society, Historical Society, the work that they've put into in ensuring that there are items for us to look into the future and look back on has been absolutely amazing. And we thank them for everything that they have done down there at Warrandyte Historical Society. We really appreciate everything they've done down there. So that's my two reports. Councillors, do we have any other reports? Councillor Taha.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Firstly, I just wanted to thank the Manningham United Football Club for inviting me to their All Abilities Gala at Petty's Reserve, their home base. It was really heartwarming to see the effort of the club that they go to put together to provide a tournament for kids who need to play the beautiful game, with some additional measures in place to accommodate their needs and others who just want to play without the pressure of the league. This also provides a really vital social support network for their parents and carers. The event invited teams not only from Manningham but across the city to come and play, and it was so wonderful to see the kids uplifted via playing sports on such an excellent facility, which I must say everyone in that community spoke about how fantastic those grounds were and how appreciated they were. So well done to the Manningham United Football Club for running and conducting such an important event, and also for our officers for looking after and providing the grounds. Now, speaking of football, we are all aware of the negative impact that gambling can have across our community. And while enjoying the World Cup, which was enjoyable despite FIFA's corruption, and well done to Spain for the win and the joy it provided to so many around the world, it was blatantly clear how pervasive advertising for gambling is, how inadequate the responses federal government have been, and how large it looms as a social issue that must be addressed. It's actually shocking how normalised gambling has become, especially to youth who can hide it away on their phones, which is a real social risk, and even to young children like my own, who can recognise the major operators with ease due to their relentless advertising. I believe it's really important that Manningham Council ensures it does everything it can to ensure that we are mitigating the harm from gambling in our community. I understand that we have a fulsome gambling policy in place, which I've read. What I was hoping to get from officers is an understanding and a review of the key statistics in that policy paper in order to audit how effective the policy's been over the last 2 years since it was implemented, and maybe it can help us see if there's any more that we can do to support our community on this pervasive issue. Thank you, Mayor. Thank
you, Councillor Al-Taha. Do we have any other councillors with a report?
Do you want to just throw it in?
Oh, sorry, Andrew McMaster, my apologies. Can I throw it back to you for the question that Councillor Al-Taha put forward?
Thank you, Mayor.
Apologies.
It's getting to the end of the night, so
it is.
through you. Thank you, Councillor Al-Taha, for your question. You're absolutely right that gambling is an increasing problem, and it is unfortunately also an increasing problem within Manningham. In anticipation of your question, I gathered some data today, recently released data, which suggests that $62.1 million was lost on electronic gaming machines in Manningham between July 2025 and June 2026, which is an enormous figure. So we do have, as you mentioned, the gambling policy, and there's actually an action plan associated with that. I had to remind myself when we submitted it, the years going by in a blur, but in Q2 we submitted for councillors' benefit a status report on where we're up to on the actions under that plan. We'll recirculate that for you. And also there's some additional actions that the team is taking under the policy. So we'll put that into a bulletin article and I'll ask the team to do some reflections on what that might be able to do to supplement those existing actions, as well as the additional actions which have been carried out by the team in more recent times.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew. And thank you, Councillor El Taha. Any other councillors like to put it through? Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Mayor. And every year when we prepare our council's annual budget, and we always ask for community feedback about what matters then for the following for the next year's budget. And open space is always a top of the priorities from those submissions. And that's why Council is currently preparing Manningham's new open space strategy for the next 10 years to meet the growing needs of our community, because our community is growing and the needs for open space is growing as well. And the phase 1 of the community consultation is now open, and public submissions close at 5 o'clock on Monday, 31st of August, 2026. So when we talk about open space, we mean everything from parks, reserves, playgrounds, sporting fields, to walking and cycling trails, bushland, and waterways. And I attended some advisory committees meetings and local pop-up stores. I'm so impressed by the strong community interest in our open spaces. And some young adults also very keen to provide their feedback, and some of the feedbacks are really interesting and eyes wide opening for me. And for example, they requested more shelter over outdoor areas so they can read or relax when it rains. Or outdoor exercise stations were also suggested to save money on gym memberships, among other ideas. So residents can complete the survey online at Your Say Manningham, or fill out the printed version in the August edition of Manningham Matters, or simply pick up at the front desk a pamphlet from Manningham Civic Council, from Manningham Civic Centre. I encourage all residents to submit their feedback and make your voices heard by council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chen. Are there any other councillors who like to put a report through? Councillor Diamante.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I do have a question about the proposed North East Link project planning scheme amendment. But first, Mr Mayor, during question time, Cynthia Pilley talked about the preciousness of tree canopy and the time it takes to grow and nurture, and how easy it is to kill them, but how difficult it is to maintain them. And we also had a question, a talk about a large company that has impacted First Nation cultural heritage sites. These are two risks that are facing our two reserves in Manningham as a result of this planning scheme amendment. We had multiple community submissions on this, and Manningham also submitted its objections, and that was in early June, and as a council we've not had an update. So my question is to the officers, have they, or has the North East Link project provided any update on the progress of its proposed planning scheme amendment relating to the Eastern Freeway project boundary extension, impacting significantly at Tram Road Reserve and also the reserve at Middleborough Road?
Thank you. I will pass it on to Andrew McMaster, Director of City Planning and Livability.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. Councillor Diamante, we haven't had any formal notification as yet from North East Link on changes to the planning scheme amendment. They have assured us that they are taking council's objections to the expanded project boundary very seriously and doing their best to minimise the areas that are the subject of that planning scheme amendment. We haven't yet had any formal correspondence about what that looks like. As soon as we do that, we'll update councillors, but we are confident that the project has heard council's concerns and are working to minimise to the extent that they can.
Thank you. And hopefully they've also heard the community's concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Diamante. Councillors, anyone else would like to put a report or ask questions? Councillor Lang.
Thank you. Look, councillors, I just would like to give you a bit of an update on two things. For the Park Orchards Pantry and community, they established a Park Orchards Pantry in COVID where there became a need for food security in what we would consider an affluent area. But no area is immune to the cost of living crisis that we have at the moment and to being able to buy quality food. Therefore, the Park Orchard Pantry does a pantry swap, as well as collecting unused bread and food and then divvying it out to the community. So they've had a huge achievement this week with being auspiced through the Warrandyte Domvale Rotary Association, and therefore that then receives an insurance risk responsibilities and oversight in their support and governance, which is a real step forward when it comes to community groups, food security and food sustainability. I also want to draw your attention to another issue in Wonga Park. I would like to thank the owner of Wonga Park Post Office, Shane Rees, for bringing to our attention the need for a bus stop shelter at 404 Yarra Road. There are hundreds of school kids and community members at that bus stop every day, not just in school hours, but throughout the whole day. It is the busiest bus stop in Wonga Park, and it is exposed to the elements. There are people who have brought their own chairs just to be able to use the bus stop. And then, of course, they are removed because they are not an official item there. So they are putting together a petition at the moment, and that will probably be brought to council. And it is about making our public transport more accessible, appealing, and being protected from natural elements. So I'm just bringing that to councillors' attention.
Thank you, Councillor Lang. Are there any other councillors like to put a report through or ask a question? Thank you, councillors. Item number 16, confidential reports. There are no confidential reports this month. Therefore, I will now officially close the meeting.